Okay, so turn back to 2009. Uh, while the global crisis, or what business do at that time?
I think in those days when it was difficult, businesses in Singapore were very fortunate because they had the assistance of the Singapore government. The Singapore government recognized the difficulties that businesses were going through, and they recognized that there's only so much that the businesses could do. You know, things were really beyond their control. The businesses couldn't go out and just pull people off the streets, you know, to ensure that they increase their turnover and so on. And if they are not having sales, whether it is production or whether it is retail or whatever, if they don't have the orders coming in, if they can't improve their top line sales, it means that they're not getting very much revenue, and perhaps they could be even in a position where they might have to shut off their businesses. They might have to stop their companies from operations. They may have to retrench workers and let workers go. Now, the government was very concerned about that. They did not want any businesses to use that as a reason to retrench workers. The Singapore government was very concerned about the welfare of the people in Singapore. They didn't want them to lose their jobs because of this situation. So what the government did at that time was that they released some of the reserves that we have accumulated through our many years of economic progress. And fortunately for us, we did manage, you know, many good years where we harnessed reserves. So they released some of the reserves to subsidize the payroll of workers for companies, so that the companies are encouraged to hold on to the workers. So to say that, for example, if the salary of the worker was $1,000,
Yes.
so at that time you don't have to pay $1,000. Maybe you just pay $800. I will pay the remaining $200 for you. You know, the government pays the rest, using those figures as an example. So it was that kind of assistance that companies could get to hold on to their staff, to look after the welfare of the staff, and to keep their companies going, even though they were not getting real orders and businesses. Meanwhile, they recognized that business was slow. You know, they were not getting any business. So even if they kept the people in their work, there wasn't very much work for the people to do. And you're not going to, you know, you don't like the idea of having the people come in to the office or to the shop floor and then not do anything, just stand around and not do anything. So at the same time, simultaneously, the government also released money to encourage companies to send these workers for training. Times where, you know, it is not peak period for them, they were not up to their necks in work. So during the lull period, go take advantage of this time and send them for training so that they can be better workers for the future. And these kind of training costs were also subsidized by the government. So we had a lot of assistance then, also assistance from the government to encourage companies at that time to either refurbish their stores, to renovate, or to take the advantage of that lull period to adopt new technology and so on. And all these things the government helped by, you know, subsidizing the thing. So during this period where business was slow, the companies had assistance from the government to prepare themselves for a better time in the future. And that was what they did, and it helped. So that was domestically what the government did to help the businesses. Then internationally, also fortunately, our government had enough foresight to see how they could work internationally. And I would say that we were very fortunate that we only had to contend with the crisis for a very short period of time. If I remember correctly, I think we came out of the crisis situation in less than a year, because of all this kind of assistance that came together. And meanwhile, I'm not going to say that the businesses needn't do anything for themselves.
Right.
They also had to rethink their whole business model, you know, how they should strategize for the future. And at that time, they also came to a realization that, for instance, some of the retailers who were used to target international visitors for the major part of their sales, came to the realization that things are not going to be so rosy always. Economic situations, downturns and upturns,
Right.
can happen anywhere in the
Right,
world.
right, right.
It's not just within Singapore, not just regionally, could be globally.
Right.
And it could also happen at any time.
Right.
In the past, where the economic cycles used to be longer, now the economic cycles are very short. 1 year is good,
Right, right,
next
right.
year is bad.
Right, right.
And because of all these things, I think businesses realize that they cannot just depend on one market alone. They must diversify, they must relook and strategize their business models to see how they can survive through the different economic cycles. So, in retail, for instance, it came to a point where during those times they realized that tourists were not coming in, very slow, and the bulk of retail was still the local consumer. And when they looked back through the years, even before the 2008 crisis, they realized that, hey, 70%, 80% of our sales are actually attributed to local consumption. So the local consumer is actually the backbone of, our business. So let's concentrate on this. And instead of saying, oh, I rely on the tourists to give me, that business. So let's concentrate on the local consumer. And if I can have the tourist spending, that's icing on the cake, that's cream, that's extra, that's bonus, which will be very, very good during the good times. But let's not forget the local, which is the backbone, and they are the ones who will tide us through good times or bad times. So businesses had to rethink their strategies as well to see how they can work into the future.
So what is the challenge of retailers in Singapore? Because now, in my idea, is very high price and we can go anywhere and very similar.
I think now for a lot of retailers, it's to see how they can be a retailer of choice. Retailer of choice, not just for consumers, because as you say, there's so much competition.
Right.
If I sell shirts, there are so many other retailers who sell shirts as well. So what can I do to make myself different? So some of the things that retailers have done perhaps is to have a personal stylist in the store. So you go in there, you're not just going there to walk to the shelves to pick your own shirt. They could have stylists there that you can book appointments with. And the stylist will be able to come and look at you and talk to you to find out what your lifestyle is and therefore what kinds of shirts suits you best. If you're a businessman, whether it is that type of shirt. What age are you, what your color preferences are. And sometimes what your color preferences are may not necessarily be the colors that actually suit you. So these stylists are also color consultants. They have gone through this whole study about colors and how different colors suit different complexions and so on. So they could put in this extra service for their customers, so that makes them stand out a little bit more.
Right.
Or it could be another retailer who may not have a personal stylist, but who may have an expert tailor on board, who, if you buy a shirt and you say, oh, but I really don't like that kind of collar. I really like the fit of the shirt, but I don't like that collar. Can you change the style of the collar for me? So that could be something extra that they could provide. So it's how to make themselves unique to the consumer so that they become a retailer of choice for the customer. The other thing that they have to do now, Singapore enjoys full employment. Our unemployment rate is very, very low.
Okay.
And retail is one of the businesses, as you would appreciate, which require people. We can't turn to technology for everything because service is still necessary. You still need the people there to work with. So how can retailers make themselves to be a retailer of choice for the workers as well, that the workers will come to work for them? So they must build for themselves a good reputation, not just... Now, retailers are not going to work for a retailer who has no consumers. If the retailer doesn't have good business, nobody will want to work for them because they know I'm not going to get my pay. I may not get my pay, my pay may be low. I may not get my bonus. I will not get my sales commission, right? So they will want to go and work for a retailer who has a good reputation amongst the consumers. In addition, they also want to go and look for an employer who will look after their own welfare.
Right.
If I come and work for you, no doubt your business may be very good, but if you don't look after me, if you don't make sure that I am well enough to work, if I'm feeling ill, and you still say, but you're supposed to be on duty, so you better stay here. You can't go home. You can't go and rest. Then I'm not going to be a very happy staff,
Right.
right? Or if I am young and I want to upgrade myself and be better, and then you say, no, you just do your work. I'm not going to bother about, sending you for training courses and so on. I'm not going to be a very happy worker either. So retailers have to make themselves to be a retailer of choice, an employer of choice as well for the workers, because workers in Singapore are spoiled. They are spoiled for choice. They can go anywhere. So those are some of the challenges that the retailers have to overcome. They have to jump that hurdle and see how they can be better, than the rest. The other thing that they need to look at is, I think they need to refocus their whole business strategy. In the past, when everything was good, whenever a new shopping center comes up, they can say, oh, I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be there, I can locate everywhere. But now with all these challenges, high cost of operations, lack of manpower, they can't afford to keep expanding anymore. They can't expand because they can't get people. They don't have enough people to work all those stores. So they need to re-strategize. Do I need to be here, there, and everywhere? Can I forego being located there and concentrate my business here in this location? Maybe expand a little bit on that one location, do a little bit more there, make it a little bit more special, rather than have, it's like a cookie cutter mall and everywhere is the same. So sometimes what it could be is, it could be the same brand,
Right.
but they could be a little bit different in each store. For instance, if it is a brand of let's say, I don't have a specific example, but let's say if it is a brand, say, selling leather goods,
Right.
okay? But maybe at this particular store, they are selling only handbags for ladies. Because, this mall, they look at all the other tenants, fashion, ladies' fashion, and all that. So maybe a lot of ladies come to this mall. So maybe this one, I sell leather handbags, leather shoes for ladies. Maybe another mall, because they have let's say, a computer store, one that
Right.
sells a lot of these high-end electronic technology thing, and before that they observe the traffic, and it's frequented by a lot of men, let's say, a lot of career men who are into all these electronic stuff. Maybe I can sell leather things that cater to the men. Leather portfolio bags, men's leather shoes, men's wallets, and so on. So it could be the same brand, but could be selling different things at different stores, and therefore they specialize instead of just making every store the same.
Right.
So I think retailers need to face up to these same challenges. It will be tougher for them, because in the past they have managed to do things the way they have done, just change a little bit, change a little bit, change a little bit as the years progresses. But I think now it is time to make a leap. They have to make a quantum leap where change is concerned. It cannot be a 5% change anymore. I think the change that they make will have to be greater than that, because of all the constraints that are in front of them. And consumers are getting more demanding. Consumers are getting more challenging as well, because, with the availability of the internet and so on, a lot of consumers know a lot about products and merchandise. Sometimes they know even more than, the people in the store. So retailers need also to see how they can cater to this group of very, very well-informed consumers. So these are, just some of the challenges that they have ahead of them.
And other country in ASEAN, they're building up a new shopping mall as well.
That's right. So the competition is there. So, so while I say that the local shopper forms about 70 to 80% of their sales, they must think about how to retain this local consumer, because, as you rightly said, even within the region, it's progressing so fast. They're
Right.
building their malls, and because they have cheaper operations, they may be more price competitive than Singapore retailers can ever be. And Singaporean shoppers, it's so easy for them to hop across, to the regional countries, and not just regional, but even further afield, because now with the all the low cost carriers, now there are low cost carriers that goes all the way to Australia. It's not just regional, it's all the way 8 hours flight, and it's a low cost carrier. So the competition is there, and then plus people are going online, online shopping and so on.
Right.
So it's a different world, it's a different era, and retailers need to wake up. They need to wake up and face this reality, and changes are going to happen faster and faster. In the past, when a change happens, it's quite slow. It happens very slowly, it evolves slowly. Nowadays, it's almost not evolution anymore. It's almost magic. It's almost like magic. One day you see this, the next day you don't. It's something totally different, and this makes it all the more important for retailers not to be so myopic and just look at their own operations and the operations of their neighbors, but they need to look globally. They need to see how everything works globally, and how retailers in the rest of the world have handled such issues before, and they have to see how they can adapt that to their own operations.
Do you talk this topic with the other business in your association?
We do. Sorry, you were saying that we
I mean, do you talk this problem with other businesses in your association?
we
with
do.
retailers?
I think the problems they know. I think they realize the problem. So what we try to do as an association is, just now as I was saying, that they need to expose themselves to practices, best practices, and how people do business in other parts of the world and so on. And we try to do that. Every year we have a conference. As an association, we hold a conference, a retail industry conference every year, where we invite speakers from different parts of the world as well to come and share global trends with them, to come and share case studies and so on with our people. So that is our own conference. And every 2 years, because Singapore is also a member of the Federation of Asia Pacific Retailers Associations, FAPRA. This federation comprises associations such as us from 17 different countries and areas around the world. And the Thai Retailers Association is also one of the members. And every 2 years, every odd year, there's a major convention and exhibition also organized under FAPRA. And 2 years ago, in 2011, we organized it in Singapore. And this year, this same conference will be organized in Istanbul in Turkey. So it's another event that we also encourage our members to go and attend, and listen to experts and talk to each other. Sometimes it's listening to experts. Sometimes it's just talking to each other, networking and talking to each other, because if people share ideas with each other, then maybe together. I think it has come to a stage where they cannot be so selfish and be so protective and be so afraid that people will learn things from them. I think it has come to a stage where people got to be a little bit more open about sharing, because not everything that you do can be exactly copied by me.
Right.
You may be doing it very successfully, and you think that just by opening your mouth and sharing, somebody can copy
Right.
exactly the same thing, and you
Right.
don't want people to steal your business from you. But it's not like that. It could be very successful for you, but if I copy exactly, it may not work for me
Right.
at all. So yes, I have to listen to a lot of people, get a bit of an idea here, get a little bit of an idea there, and a little bit, and then I have to think very hard. Sit down with my own team, with my own management team, sit down together, discuss, brainstorm, and it's not enough for me alone, perhaps the CEO alone, to go and listen to all this. He needs to send his people, he needs to send his management team to listen to all these kind of talks, to all these kind of presentations, because everybody who listens to the same talk may get different ideas from it. So I think it's a good idea if every CEO could expose his management team to as many things as possible so that together they can brainstorm and discuss and see how it can lift their own business a little bit further.
Now, ratio between how can I say, the local and tourist is 70 and 30.
About that, yeah. It's around 70/30, 70% being local spenders.
Okay, thank you very much. Finish. ขอบคุณค่ะ